Season 10 is coming to an end in 2 days' time. With the so-called Super Season sunsetting, now would be a great time for us to dive into what I believe to be the most controversial update in Sea of Thieves' 6-year history. From guilds to the Skull of Siren Song to Safer Seas, let's talk about the various successes and failures of Season 10. Season 10 began on the 19th of October 2023 and was marketed as a super season before it launched. Fans were told that the key feature of Season 11 would be brought forward to make up for the massively long Season 9. Season 9 lasted just over 7 months, the equivalent of twice the length that seasons tend to last. After that amount of waiting, people were eagerly awaiting to see what was next for Sea of Thieves. It turned out that Season 10 would launch with the long-awaited guilds, the Skull of Siren Song from Season 11, and Safer Seas, the PvE servers that some people have always wanted. Yeah, we'll get into that part. Guilds were previously slated for December 2022 in Season 9, but were pushed back following Season 7's delay to 2023, and then again to October, making them 10 months later than what was planned. Guilds have been a bit of a mixed bag, where the premise behind them is that they're intended to be a tool for a group of players to play together. They essentially act like a Discord server, but in-game, just without the voice chat, text chat, and the ability to send gifts. I really liked guilds when they launched, but as time has gone on and we've got all the best rewards, it's something I don't really care about as much anymore. This was for a handful of reasons. Sticking with the rewards, all of the best rewards are locked behind the first 80 levels, and with a decently active group of friends, it just didn't take us very long to get them. Part of this was the generous progression received from the Hourglass. It was a little boon to the dying mode that made it a bit nicer to play, but since it was nerfed, it's discouraged us from playing it. The clothing rewards are amazing, but after 100 it's just the new ship set. Some pieces require you to get several distinctions to get them, and half the pieces are just recolors of a set that's been in since launch. On top of this, the guilds have various limitations that undermine the roleplay aspect. As a Reaper themed guild, we'd like to progress doing Reaper emissaries and Servants of the Flame, but due to the emissary system favouring selling to the sovereigns, it just makes little sense when they are the enemies of Captain Flameheart. The limits to just 24 people became a bit much and ultimately resulted in excluding people from the guild. This would have been much more social and beneficial to people who don't have regular crews. Guilds missed that, probably due to balancing progression, but I won't lie and say Guilds has really introduced new people into our group. Oh, and if you only have a handful of friends, there is basically no chance of making any meaningful progression in them. Creating the crest, name and motto was amazing, with that initial burst of excitement being a really nice feeling. But despite this, guilds added no real new activities, and guild progression was tied with doing the same things we've always been doing since launch. Guilds has a number of things it could be perfected by. Whilst I like the concept and see it having so much more potential, I don't think this one has really stood the test of time, with the honeymoon period well and truly over. The second piece of content was the Skull of Siren Song, releasing in November. I think, as a veteran player, this was the main appeal for me for Season 10. Having a shared opt-in voyage was an excellent idea. By reusing some mechanics from the Ash and Wind Skull and the Reaper's chests, it was awesome, allowing everyone to see where the items were at all times. The gameplay for Skull of Siren Song could be wild, with several ship fights breaking out. With the skull slowing ships too, it would discourage running. This is the first time we've seen something like this. Whilst I'll still maintain this was an excellent addition, there are some issues, both fixed and persisting, that has undermined the longevity of the voyage. Firstly were the spawns. When the voyage was active, this would cause ships to spawn very close up after sinking. This was done to allow people to get back into the fight, but ended up frustrating other players. I personally was never bothered by this, and it never caused me to lose a skull, but I can see why it was a bit too aggressive, even more so when it affected non-Skull of Siren Song activities. Thankfully, this issue is now fixed. The second issue with Skull of Siren Song were the rewards. While all 5 rewards are really good, the way they are distributed just actively discourages people from engaging in it long term. The best reward, Briggsy's Jacket, is awarded after just 1 skull is sold, while the flag is also earned from opening just 1 chest. This takes almost no effort, leaving out 3 rewards for the last 3 commendations. While 1 is a new mask, there's no way in game to even check how to earn it. You have to rely on outside sources or just unlock it by accident. This is baffling, and I have no idea why this isn't fixed. To further this, a measly 50,000 gold is all that is awarded for completing this. 50,000 is not a lot of gold, especially when it doesn't scale with emissary flags as of yet. No reputation is awarded either, so now it's even less valuable when Season 11 starts, when everyone is no longer capped at level 75. Other world events are much more valuable and less busy, or at least when this launched. Finally, the voyage is not fun unless there's conflict, otherwise it turns into an extremely slow fetch quest with less gold than Legend of the Veil. It's an amazing concept and easily the best content since the Chest of Fortune was added, but I won't be touching this one when I have my commendations. It's sad, but this can still be saved by adding reputation and emissary value. Speaking of the Chest of Fortune, let's quickly talk about its location this season. The Chest of Fortune was moved to the Fort of the Damned in Season 10, which marks the first time it can be spawned into the world by the player. The decision had both positive and negative effects on the world event. Firstly, it allowed anyone and everyone to progress their Chest of Fortune at their own pace, since you could stack multiple events in a row. In turn, this would last longer than a Fort of Fortune, allowing for more fights. However, in my experience, we had far more combat in Season 9 with the Fort of Fortune. I think in an effort to make the Chest of Fortune easily accessible, it lowered the stakes and discouraged people from fighting over it. Server hopping for a Chest of Fortune meant that this was going to be your only opportunity to get one, so you'd have to fight tooth and nail for it. And we did. I do think it was a step down having it in the Fort of the Damned, and I'm very excited to have it in the Skeleton Fleet in Season 11. In future, it should stay in the randomly spawning events. If I have to do another Fort of the Damned though, I'll scream. Now, moving on to the most controversial part of Season 10, Safer Seas. For years, the devs have maintained that PvE servers were never going to be a thing in Sea of Thieves, until they suddenly were. There was some concern that Safer Seas would be changing the direction of the game, and so far, so good on that front. The main reason for preventing this is that Sea of Thieves is relying on other players to flesh out the gameplay experience. The other reason is that Safer Seas progression is so much less than High Seas, with some of the best content missing. I've seen so many voice their concerns for this penalty, seeing this as a punishment for not wanting to play PvP in a PvP VE game. In reality, this is not a mode to easily get all the rewards for the game. It's meant for relaxing, enjoying the tall tales, or for new players to get a better feel for the game, before they get spawn camped in the High Seas. It's been controversial due to the concerns around it being announced, the worries that High Seas will be left dead, and even the people begging for it for years aren't happy about it. I mean, most people are or simply don't care, but the discourse around this was massive. It's definitely the most controversial decision since they decided to add a crossplay toggle. Go and look at the comments on that video, I'm not joking. It'll be interesting to see if these restrictions are relaxed over time. I personally think they will, since I reckon that cap has turned away many would-be players. It doesn't seem like it's moved the needle all that much. We'll see, but in its current form, Rare has nailed Safer Seas. Despite having no appeal to me whatsoever, nor was it ever intended to, it's probably the best addition in Season 10 for the health of the game. And yeah, that brings Season 10 to a close. But was it a super season? Let me know in the comments below and join me on Tuesday as we go over the very interesting Season 11.